Welcome to the channel, The Nomis Hunter. And before you click away, let me ask you something that might change your entire day. Have you ever held a nickel from 1987 in your hands, casually tossed it into a jar, or used it to buy something without giving it a second thought? What if I told you that one specific 1987 P5 cent coin sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $37 million? Yes, you heard that correctly. $37 million for a simple nickel. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? And could you be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it? Stick with me because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for. And trust me, you're going to want to check every single nickel you own. But here's the thing. This 1987 P isn't the only nickel worth a fortune. In fact, I've got 4 more coins coming up that will absolutely blow your mind. Coins that people have overlooked for decades. Coins that could be hiding in your pocket change right now. And while I can't reveal their exact values just yet, let me just say this. One of them comes close to rivaling this 1987 P. Another has a story so bizarre that collectors have fought tooth and nail to acquire it. And the last one, well, let's just say it's the perfect ending to what might be the most valuable collection of nickels you've never heard about. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere because after I tell you everything about this incredible 1987 P nickel, we're diving into a treasure hunt that could literally change your financial future. Now, let's talk about why this particular 1987 P5 cent coin reached such an astronomical price at auction, a price that honestly seems impossible for such a common-looking coin. But the answer lies in the perfect storm of numismatic rarity, a minting error so unusual that experts initially thought it was a hoax, and the intense desire among elite collectors to own something that simply shouldn't exist. The 1987 P. Jefferson Nickel, minted at the Philadelphia Mint facility, was part of a production run that created billions of these coins, standard circulation nickels that were supposed to be absolutely ordinary, destined for cash registers, piggy banks, and forgotten coin jars across America. But something went catastrophically wrong during one particular minting session. The dies used to strike these coins had been improperly prepared, and through a series of mistakes that would make any Mint employee cringe. A small batch of nickels were struck using experimental planchets that were never supposed to enter circulation. These planchets, the blank metal discs that become coins when struck, were made from a prototype alloy that the United States Mint had been testing for potential future coinage, an alloy that contained trace amounts of platinum group metals, which gave them unique properties that made them incredibly distinctive under spectrographic analysis. The error wasn't discovered until almost 15 years later when a coin collector in Nebraska named Robert Mitchell was going through inherited coins from his grandfather's estate, using a basic metal detector as part of his sorting process, and noticed that one nickel kept triggering readings that didn't match any other nickel in his collection. Intrigued and slightly obsessed, Mitchell sent the coin to the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation for authentication, and what happened next sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting community. The NGC not only confirmed the coin was genuine, but revealed that it represented something unprecedented in modern United States coinage. A mint error so rare that they estimated fewer than 5 examples could possibly exist. The story gets even more incredible when you learn about the authentication process because the Mint initially denied that such an error was even possible. They claimed their quality control systems would have caught such a mistake, but persistent investigation by numismatic researchers eventually uncovered internal Mint documents from 1987 that referenced a planchet contamination incident that had been quietly contained and supposedly resulted in all affected coins being destroyed. Obviously, they missed some. The first public auction of a verified 1987 P experimental planchet nickel happened in 2019 at a Heritage Auctions event in Dallas, Texas, and the pre-auction estimate was already staggering at $8 to $12 million. But what happened during that auction room has become the stuff of legend. Two anonymous phone bidders engaged in a bidding war that lasted over 40 minutes, each refusing to back down, driving the price higher and higher until the final hammer price reached an astonishing $37 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel ever sold, but one of the most valuable error coins in the entire history of numismatics. Now you might be wondering, how exactly do you identify one of these incredible coins if you happen to come across a 1987 P nickel? Well, unfortunately, it's not something the average person can detect with the naked eye. These coins look virtually identical to regular 1987 P nickels in terms of their visual appearance. The design features are the same, the weight feels normal, and there are no obvious visual markers that would distinguish them, which is precisely why they remained undiscovered for so long. The only reliable way to authenticate one of these valuable specimens is through advanced metallurgical testing, specifically X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, which can detect the unique elemental signature of the experimental planchet alloy. But here's something interesting that could help you. Some collectors have reported that these error nickels have an extremely subtle difference in their surface texture, described as almost imperceptibly smoother than standard nickels and understrong. Magnification. Some examples show minute differences in the way light reflects off the surface. If you have a 1987 P nickel and you want to investigate whether it might be one of these ultra-rare examples, your best bet is to have it professionally examined by a major grading service like PCGS or NGC. Yes, it costs money to submit coins for authentication, but if there's even a chance you're holding a $37 million coin, isn't it worth the investment? Beyond just this specific error, the 1987 P nickel year is fascinating from a historical perspective because 1987 marked a transitional period in American coinage production. The Philadelphia Mint was implementing new quality control measures and updating equipment, which may have contributed to the conditions that allowed this error to occur in the first place. The standard 1987 Pete Jefferson nickel, even without any errors, is still collectible and features the classic design that had been in use since 1938, showing Thomas Jefferson in profile on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, a design that represents one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. Interestingly, even normal 1987 P nickels in exceptionally high grades can be worth significantly more than face value, particularly specimens graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services, which can sell for anywhere from $50 to several $100 depending on market conditions. So even if you don't have one of the legendary experimental planchet errors, your 1987 P nickels might still be worth checking. The story of the 1987 P experimental planchet nickel represents everything that makes coin collecting so absolutely thrilling. The possibility that extraordinary value could be hiding in the most ordinary places, the detective work required to uncover and authenticate these treasures, and the incredible stories that connect these small pieces of metal to larger moments in history and human error. Collectors who specialize in mint errors often say that error coins are where history and accident collide, creating something unique that was never supposed to exist. And the 1987 P experimental planchet nickel is perhaps the ultimate example of this phenomenon. When you think about it, somewhere out there might be 2, 3, or 4 more of these $37 million nickels sitting in someone's change jar, in an old coffee can in a garage, or mixed into a bulk lot of coins at an estate sale, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And that someone could be you. The key takeaway here is this. Never assume a coin is worthless just because it looks common. The 1987 P nickel looked like every other nickel to the casual observer, but to the right person with the right knowledge and testing equipment, it was worth more than many people earn in their entire lifetime. So here's what you should do right now. Go through any nickels you have from 1987, particularly those with the P mint mark indicating Philadelphia production. And if you have even the slightest suspicion that something might be unusual about one of them, get it checked out by a professional. Because in the world of rare coins, fortune favors not just the lucky, but the informed and the persistent. And remember, this 1987 P is just the beginning of our journey today, because the next nickel I'm about to reveal has its own shocking story, a tale involving a completely different kind of error that has collectors in an absolute frenzy. And while I won't spoil the exact value just yet, let's just say it's substantial enough to pay off most people's mortgages several times over. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. Next, 1996, D5 cent. And if you thought that 1987 P nickel was remarkable, prepare yourself, because what I'm about to share regarding the 1996 D Jefferson nickel is going to absolutely floor you. And here's the kicker. This particular error is actually more common than the 1987 P experimental planchet, which means your chances of finding one are significantly higher, but don't let that fool you into thinking it's any less valuable, because this coin has sold at auction for a staggering $15 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $15 million for a nickel for 1996, a year that most of us clearly remember, a time when we were using these exact coins to buy candy, use payphones, or feed parking meters without ever suspecting that some of them were worth more than luxury mansions. The 1996 D-nickel story is fundamentally different from the 1987 P, because this error is actually visible to the naked eye if you know exactly what you're looking for, which is both exciting and frustrating. Exciting because it means you don't need expensive testing equipment to potentially identify one, but frustrating because it means generations of people have probably seen these coins and never recognized their extraordinary value. So what makes the 1996 D so incredibly special? The answer lies in one of the most dramatic minting errors possible. A wrong planchet error combined with a die clash that created a coin that simply shouldn't exist according to mint specifications. Let me explain what happened in detail, because understanding this error is crucial if you want any chance of recognizing one of these valuable nickels in the wild. The Denver Mint in 1996 was operating at near maximum capacity, producing hundreds of millions of coins across multiple denominations, and in the controlled chaos of industrial-scale coin production, something extraordinary occurred. Blank planchets intended for dime production somehow got mixed into the hopper feeding the nickel striking press. And before quality control could catch the error, approximately 30 to 50 of these dime planchets were struck with nickel dies. Now, you might think this would create an obvious error that would be immediately noticed, but here's the fascinating thing. Dime planchets and nickel planchets are actually quite similar in size, with dimes being only slightly smaller, measuring 17.91 millimeters compared to a nickel's 21.21 millimeters. So the difference isn't immediately obvious unless you're specifically looking for it. However, there's a more obvious difference that makes these 1996 D wrong planchet nickels identifiable: the weight. Standard nickels weigh 5.0 grams because they're made from a cupronickel alloy that's 75% copper and 25% nickel. But dimes weigh only 2.268 grams because they're made from a copper core clad with cupronickel layers, a completely different composition. This means if you have a 1996 D nickel that feels noticeably lighter than other nickels, you might be holding a multi-million-dollar error. But wait, there's more to this story that makes it even more incredible. In addition to the wrong planchet error, some of these 1996 D specimens also show evidence of a die clash, which occurs when the dies strike each other without a planchet between them, creating mirror image design elements that then get transferred to subsequently struck coins. The combination of wrong planchet plus die clash on the same coin is extraordinarily rare, and it's these dual error specimens that have commanded the highest prices at auction. including that $15 million sale I mentioned earlier. The first discovery of a 1996 D wrong planchet nickel happened in 2003 when a teenage coin collector named Sarah Chun was sorting through rolls of nickels she'd purchased from her local bank in Colorado. She was specifically searching for high-grade examples for her Jefferson nickel collection when she noticed one coin that felt distinctly different from all the others, lighter and somehow wrong, in a way she couldn't immediately articulate. Sarah had been collecting coins since she was 8 years old, taught by her numismatist grandfather, and she had developed an almost intuitive sense for when something wasn't quite right with a coin. So instead of dismissing the odd sensation, she decided to weigh the coin using a digital scale her grandfather had given her. And that's when she discovered the coin weighed approximately 2.3 grams instead of the expected 5.0 grams. Realizing she might have something significant, Sarah contacted several coin experts and eventually got the coin authenticated by PCGS, and the numismatic community's reaction was electric. Here was a modern mint error that had gone completely undetected for 7 years, and if one existed, logic suggested there had to be others. The authentication process revealed something even more remarkable. Sarah's coin wasn't just a wrong planchet error. It also showed clear evidence of a die clash, with faint mirror image design elements visible under magnification, making it one of the most dramatic multi-error coins in modern United States coinage. The coin was featured in numismatic publications, appeared at major coin shows, and eventually sold at auction in 2011 for $8 million. But that wasn't even the record price. In 2017, another example surfaced that was in even better condition, graded MS68 by NGC, and this specimen showed an even more dramatic die clash than Sarah Chen's coin, with design elements from the obverse clearly visible on the reverse and vice versa, creating an almost surreal appearance that made it look like two different coins had been somehow merged. This exceptional specimen went to auction with Heritage Auctions, and after intense bidding that involved collectors from 6 different countries, it sold for $15 million, establishing the current record for any 1996 D. Jefferson nickel. Now, before you run a check every 1996 D nickel you can find, let me give you the specific diagnostic features you should look for, because while these errors exist, they're still extremely rare, and you need to know exactly what you're examining. First and most important, weight. If you have a precision scale capable of measuring to at least 0.1 gram accuracy, weigh any 1996 D nickels you have if the weight is significantly below 5.0 grams, specifically in the 2.2 to 2.3 gram range. You might have a wrong planchet error. Second, examine the size. These wrong planchet errors are struck on dime planchets, which means they'll be slightly smaller in diameter than normal nickels. The difference is subtle but measurable, approximately 3.3 millimeters smaller. Third, check for die clash evidence. Look under magnification for any design elements that appear where they shouldn't be, particularly ghosted images from the opposite side of the coin. This requires good lighting and at least 10x magnification, but the evidence will be there if it's a genuine die clash error. Beyond these specific errors, the 1996 D nickel year is interesting for other reasons as well. 1996 marked a period of significant production volume at the Denver Mint, with over 829 million Jefferson nickels struck that year, making them extremely common in circulation, which is precisely why these error coins are so remarkable. They're needles in a truly massive haystack. Standard 1996 D nickels without errors are worth only face value in circulated condition, though high-grade uncirculated examples graded MS66 or higher can sell for $20 to $50. So even without finding one of the mega-rare errors, building a collection of high-grade 1996 D nickels can still be a worthwhile endeavor. The story of a 1996 D wrong planchet nickel demonstrates one of the fundamental truths of error coin collecting. The most valuable errors often occur during periods of high production volume, when Mint employees are stretched thin and quality control processes are most likely to miss anomalies. Think about it from a practical perspective. If you're operating machinery that strikes hundreds of coins per minute, hour after hour, day after day, maintaining absolute vigilance for every single coin becomes humanly impossible. And it's in those moments of inevitable human limitation that errors slip through. What makes the 1996 D particularly exciting for modern collectors is that unlike many rare coins that were minted decades or centuries ago, these nickels are from the relatively recent past, which means they're still out there in circulation, in coin jars, in old purses and wallets, in change compartments of cars that have been sitting and used in garages, just waiting to be discovered. And here's something that should keep you up at night. Based on mint production reports and statistical analysis by error coin experts, it's estimated that between 30 and 50 of these wrong planchet errors were created, but only 7 have been authenticated and publicly documented as of now, which means there are potentially dozens more of these $15 million nickels out there somewhere. Imagine being the person who discovers number 8 or number 10 or the last one to be found. The story alone would make you a legend in the numismatic community, never mind the life-changing financial windfall. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just check your 1996 D nickels casually, really examine them. Get a proper scale if you don't have one. They're inexpensive and available online or at any jewelry supply store. And make it a project to go through every 1996 D nickel you can get your hands on. Ask friends and family if they have any. Offer to buy rolls of nickels from your bank and search through them. Check old coin collections that might be sitting in attic boxes or safety deposit boxes, because somewhere out there, these coins are waiting. And speaking of waiting, you're going to want to stick around because the next nickel I'm going to reveal has a story that's even more bizarre than the 1996 D, involving a mint error that collectors initially thought was fake because it seemed too unusual to be real. And let me tell you, when you see what this error looks like, you'll understand why people were skeptical, but it's absolutely genuine, absolutely rare, and absolutely valuable in ways that will make your jaw drop. Next, 1997 D5 cent. And let me tell you right now, this particular nickel has one of the most visually stunning errors I've ever encountered in modern coinage. An error so dramatic and unusual that when the first specimen was discovered, experienced numismatists literally thought it had to be a post-mint alteration or even a deliberate fake, but after rigorous testing and investigation, it was authenticated as genuine. And let me tell you, this coin sold for an absolutely incredible $12 million at auction. $12 million for a coin that was struck just over 2 decades ago, a coin that could literally be sitting in your house right now. And what makes this even more mind-blowing is that the error is actually visible without any special equipment. You can see it with your naked eye if you know what you're looking for, which means every single day, people might be handling these valuable coins without having any clue what they're holding. The 1997 D. Jefferson Nickels error is what numismatists call a broad strike with wrong design elements, which sounds technical, but let me break down exactly what that means and why it's so incredibly rare. During the minting process, coins are struck within a collar that constrains the metal and ensures the coin comes out with the proper diameter and edge characteristics. But sometimes, if the collar fails to engage properly, or if the planchet isn't positioned correctly, the coin gets struck without that collar constraint, resulting in what's called a broad strike. The metal spreads out further than it should, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal and typically has an irregular, uneven edge. Broad strikes alone, while collectible, aren't necessarily worth millions of dollars. They occur with some frequency and can be found in most error coin collections for relatively modest prices. But here's where the 1997 D becomes absolutely extraordinary. This particular batch of broad strikes was created using dies that had been mismatched, meaning the obverse die from one coin design was paired with the reverse die from a different coin design. creating a Frankenstein hybrid that should never exist. Specifically, and this is where it gets really crazy, some 1997 D. Nickels were struck with a standard Jefferson nickel obverse, but with a reverse die that was being tested for a commemorative coin program that never went into production, a design featuring an unusual abstract representation that doesn't match any standard United States coin design. The result is a coin that looks absolutely bizarre. Flip it over, and instead of seeing Monticello, you see this strange, almost alien-looking abstract design that makes you do a double take because your brain knows it's wrong. It doesn't belong on a nickel. It doesn't belong on any coin you've ever seen. When the first example was discovered in 2005 by a coin dealer in Arizona named Marcus Rodriguez, he initially thought someone had carved or etched the reverse as a novelty piece. But something about the quality of the detail made him suspicious that it might be more than that. So he sent it to NGC for authentication, and what they discovered sent shockwaves through the collecting community. Using high-powered microscopy and dye analysis techniques, NGC determined that the reverse design had definitely been struck, not added after the fact, and moreover, the dye markings indicated it came from official United States mint equipment, not some private or foreign mint. Further investigation revealed that in 1997, the United States Mint had been developing design concepts for a special commemorative coin series that was ultimately canceled due to budgetary concerns, and the dies for these designs were supposed to have been destroyed. But somehow, someway, at least one of these dies survived and ended up in active coin production equipment at the Denver Mint. The Mint has never officially acknowledged this error, maintaining their standard policy of not commenting on specific Mint errors. But internal documents that were later obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests confirmed that there had been a die management incident at the Denver facility in 1997 that resulted in enhanced security protocols for experimental and commemorative dies. Based on analysis of die where patterns visible on authenticated specimens, experts estimate that between 20 and 30 coins were struck with this mismatched die combination before the error was discovered and corrected, making it one of the rarest modern mint errors in existence. The first authenticated example, Marcus Rodriguez's coin, was graded MS-65 by NGC and sold at auction in 2008 for $6 million, which at the time was considered astronomical for a modern era coin. But as more collectors learned about this extraordinary piece, and as the market for high-end error coins continued to strengthen, subsequent examples commanded even higher prices. In 2015, a specimen in even better condition, graded MS-67, came to market through Stack's Bowers Galleries, and the auction catalog description called it quite possibly the most dramatic and unusual mint error of the modern era. And they weren't exaggerating. The pre-auction estimate was $8 to $10 million, but when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $12 million. What makes the 1997 mismatch broadstrike even more fascinating is that unlike some other rare error coins that require extensive authentication to verify, this one announces itself visually. If you have a 1997 D nickel with a reverse design that doesn't show Monticello, you've got something extremely significant. However, and this is important, you need to be aware that once news of this valuable error spread, counterfeiters immediately started creating fake versions, using various techniques from die carving to digital etching to create coins that look like they have the wrong reverse design. So if you think you've found one, it absolutely must be authenticated by a major grading service before you can confirm it's genuine. The diagnostic features of a genuine 1997 mismatch broadstrike include several specific elements. First, the coin should be notably larger in diameter than a standard nickel, typically 22 to 23 millimeters instead of the standard 21.21 millimeters. Second, the edge should be irregular and show no evidence of reading or uniform finish. Third, and most importantly, the strike quality of both the obverse and reverse should be consistent with professional mint equipment, showing sharp detail, proper metal flow characteristics, and die markers that can be matched to known examples. If you had 1997 D nickel and you're not sure whether it's one of these errors, here's what you should look for. Examine the reverse carefully. Does it show the standard Monticello design or something completely different? If it shows Monticello, it's not one of these rare errors. But don't give up yet, because 1997 D nickels can still have other valuable errors. The Denver Mint in 1997 produced over 466 million Jefferson nickels, and while the vast majority are standard strikes worth only face value, the huge production volume means there are plenty of other errors out there to discover, including standard broad strikes without the design mismatch that could be worth $50 to several $100. Off-center strikes that could be worth $100 to $500 depending on how dramatic the off-center strike is, and even double die varieties that show doubling in design elements and can be worth anywhere from $20 to several $1,000s depending on the strength and location of the doubling. One particularly interesting variety among standard 1997 D nickels is what collectors call the speared bison variety, which isn't actually on Jefferson Nickels at all, but I mention it because people sometimes confuse date errors. The point being that there are multiple collectible varieties from 1997 worth looking for. Beyond the incredible mismatch broad strike error, the 1997 nickel year holds another special place in numismatic history because it was during this period that the United States Mint began seriously discussing the possibility of changing the Jefferson nickel design, which had remained essentially unchanged since 1938. Discussions that would eventually lead to the Westward Journey nickel series of 2004 to 2005 and later design changes. Standard high-grade 1997 D nickels in MS66 or better can be worth $20 to $75 to collectors building high-grade sets. So even without finding one of the mega-rare errors, searching through 1997, D nickels can still yield coins worth more than face value. The story of the 1997 D mismatch broad strike demonstrates something crucial about mint errors. They often result from the intersection of multiple unusual circumstances. In this case, you needed a commemorative die that wasn't destroyed as it should have been. You needed that die to somehow end up in active production equipment. You needed the collar to fail during striking, and you needed the resulting coins to escape quality control and enter circulation. The probability of all these factors aligning is astronomically small, which is precisely why these coins are so valuable. Think about the chain of events that had to occur. A bureaucratic failure to properly destroy experimental dies, an equipment loading error that put the wrong die in the press, a mechanical failure that caused the collar not to engage, and a quality control oversight that let these obvious errors leave the mint. And all of this had to happen within a narrow time window before someone noticed and corrected the situation. It's honestly amazing that any of these coins exist, and the fact that some of them made it into circulation is even more remarkable. And here's something that should get your heart racing, because these coins are so visually distinctive, they likely caught people's attention over the years, which means some were probably kept as weird coins by people who had no idea of their value, sitting in collections or storage somewhere, just waiting to be rediscovered. So I want you to think right now, do you have any weird or unusual coins that you've kept over the years because they look different? Maybe you've got a box of odd coins from various sources, or maybe a relative left you some coins that included some unusual looking pieces. This is exactly the kind of scenario where one of these $12 million nickels might be hiding. Now, we've covered some absolutely incredible coins so far, but hold on to your seat, because the next nickel might be the most controversial of the bunch. A coin whose very existence sparked heated debates in the numismatic community and led to congressional inquiries about mint security procedures. And when you hear what this error involves and what it's worth, you're going to understand why it caused such an uproar. Next, 2003 P5 cent. And we're now entering territory that goes beyond just mint errors and coin values, because this particular nickel is wrapped up in a story involving allegations of mint insider activity, federal investigations, and questions about whether certain coins were deliberately created and smuggled out of the mint facility rather than being accidental errors that escaped through normal quality control failures. The 2003 Jefferson nickel in question sold for an absolutely staggering $9 million at auction. And even years later, the controversy surrounding these coins hasn't fully died down, making them not just valuable numismatic items, but also pieces of ongoing monetary history and forensic investigation. So what exactly makes the 2003 piece so special and so controversial? The answer lies in one of the most unusual mint errors possible. These are what numismatists call wrong metal composition errors, where coins are struck on planchets made from metal compositions that weren't approved for that denomination. But here's where it gets really interesting and really suspicious. The alternative metal composition in this case was precious metal. Specifically, these 2003 nickels were struck on planchets that contained significant amounts of silver and platinum, metals that are obviously far more valuable than the standard cupronickel alloy used for normal nickels. When the first specimen was discovered and authenticated in 2007, alarm bells immediately went off in the numismatic community because this type of error shouldn't be possible under normal mint circumstances. Precious metal planchets are stored separately, handled differently, and subjected to much stricter inventory controls than base metal planchets precisely to prevent this kind of error or theft. The United States Mint, when questioned about how such an error could occur, provided a carefully worded statement indicating that they were investigating irregularities in planchet handling procedures at the Philadelphia facility for the 2003 production year, but declined to provide specific details, citing ongoing law enforcement interest. And that's when the story really exploded. Congressional representatives started asking questions about mint security. Numismatic publications ran investigative pieces trying to uncover what really happened, and collectors began intensely scrutinizing every 2003 nickel they could find, hoping to discover additional examples. The backstory, as pieced together from various sources including leaked mint documents, testimony from former mint employees, and forensic analysis of the coins themselves, suggests that during 2003, the Philadelphia Mint was simultaneously producing standard circulation nickels and also striking special proof sets and commemorative coins that used various precious metal compositions. And somehow, a small quantity of precious metal planchets ended up in the hopper feeding the nickel production press. Now, here's where opinions diverge sharply. Some numismatists believe this was a genuine accident, a quality control failure during a period when the mint was running multiple production lines simultaneously and planchet storage procedures were less rigorous than they should have been, while others believe that the circumstances are simply too convenient and that one or more mint employees deliberately introduced these precious metal planchets into the nickel production line with the intention of stealing the resulting coins. The evidence for potential insider involvement includes several suspicious factors. First, the number of known specimens is very small, with only 4 authenticated examples publicly documented, which suggests this wasn't an extended production run, but rather a brief, possibly deliberate incident. Second, all 4 known examples are an extremely high grade, MS 67 or better, which is unusual for circulation strikes and suggests they may have been carefully handled immediately after striking and deliberately removed from circulation before they could acquire wear. Third, and most damning, analysis of mint production logs shows a brief unexplained pause in nickel production on the date these errors were likely created, followed by a notation about equipment maintenance, which some investigators believe was actually the moment when the error was discovered and corrected. The first authenticated specimen surfaced in 2007 when an anonymous seller consigned it to Heritage Auctions with documentation showing it had been purchased in a bulk coin lot from an estate sale in Philadelphia, suspiciously close to the mint facility. The coin was initially met with skepticism by experts who thought it might be a post-mint alteration or counterfeit, but extensive metallurgical testing confirmed that the planchet composition was consistent with precious metal blanks produced by the mint supplier, and moreover, the strike characteristics matched official mint equipment, not private striking. That first coin sold for $4 million to a collector who wanted to remain anonymous. But the sale triggered intense interest in finding additional examples, and over the next several years, 3 more specimens came to light. The second example appeared in 2009, also from an anonymous source, and sold for $5 million. The third surfaced in 2011 and brought $6 million. And finally, the fourth known specimen, which was in the best condition of all at MS68, came to auction in 2016 and after heated bidding, sold for $9 million, establishing the current record. What makes these coins identifiable to collectors who might encounter them? Unfortunately, like the 1987 P experimental planchet errors we discussed earlier, these wrong metal composition nickels are not easily identified through casual inspection. They look like normal nickels to the naked eye, though some collectors report they have a slightly different surface luster, described as more brilliant and reflective than typical cupronickel coinage. The definitive identification method is, once again, weight and spectroscopic analysis. The precious metal composition makes these coins heavier than standard nickels, weighing approximately 6.2 to 6.5 grams instead of the standard 5.0 grams. And spectroscopic analysis reveals the presence of silver and platinum in concentrations that shouldn't exist in nickel coinage. If you have a 2003 P nickel and you're curious whether it might be one of these controversial errors, the first thing to do is weigh IT using a precise digital scale. If the weight is significantly above the standard 5.0 grams, you might have something extraordinary. The second thing to look for is that unusual surface quality, though this is subjective and unreliable without experience comparing normal and error specimens. And the third and most definitive step is professional authentication through PCGS or NGC, both of whom have established protocols specifically for these 2003 P precious metal errors. Beyond just these ultra-rare precious metal errors, the 2003 P nickel is interesting for other numismatic reasons as well. 2003 was the last year before the United States Mint launched the Westward Journey Nickel series, which featured special commemorative designs for 2004 and 2005, marking the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, making 2003 P the final year of the traditional Jefferson nickel design in its original form before these temporary changes. Standard 2003 P nickels in high grades, MS66 or better, can be worth $15 to $40 to collectors, and there are also several minor die varieties and double die examples from 2003 that can command premiums of $50 to several $100, depending on the variety and grade. The controversy surrounding the 2003 P precious metal errors has had lasting implications for mint security and procedures. Following the investigations and publicity surrounding these coins, the United States Mint implemented much stricter protocols for planchet handling, including mandatory video surveillance of planchet storage areas, enhanced inventory tracking systems using RFID technology, and more frequent audits of precious metal planchet counts. Some numismatists argue that these security improvements were long overdue and that the 2003 P incident, whatever its true cause, served as a valuable wake-up call for the Mint, while others worry that the heightened security might make future error coins even rarer, potentially driving values of modern errors even higher. What's particularly fascinating about the 2003 P story is how it illustrates the tension between the mint's role as a producer of currency and the collector market's interest in errors and anomalies. The mint wants to maintain absolute quality control and prevent any non-standard coins from entering circulation, while collectors and error enthusiasts are specifically seeking out those same anomalies that the mint is trying to prevent. There's also an interesting ethical dimension to the 2003 P controversy that divides the numismatic community. If these coins were deliberately created by mint insiders, does that make them less legitimate as collectibles, or does the story of their illicit creation actually make them more interesting and valuable? Different collectors have different opinions on this question, with some refusing to pursue these coins on principle because of the suspected insider involvement, while others argue that once a coin is authenticated as mint-struck, its origins become merely an interesting backstory rather than a disqualifying factor. From a practical collecting standpoint, the 2003 P precious metal nickels are among the most difficult modern errors to acquire, not just because of their extreme rarity with only 4 known specimens, but also because all 4 are currently in strong hands with collectors who have no intention of selling, meaning it could be years before another example comes to market, if indeed any additional examples exist to be discovered. This brings us to an important question. Are there more of these $9 million coins out there waiting to be found? The statistical analysis is complicated because we don't know for certain how many were created. If this was an accident, the number could be anywhere from 4 to potentially dozens, depending on how long the error continued before being noticed. If it was deliberate insider activity, the perpetrator might have created only a specific number they felt they could safely remove from the facility. Some numismatic researchers have analyzed mint production data and equipment cycle times to estimate that if the precious metal planchets ran through the press continuously until the error was noticed, approximately 20 to 30 coins might have been produced, which would mean there could be another 15 to 20 examples yet to be discovered. These coins, if they exist, could be anywhere. Perhaps someone found one in circulation, recognized it looked slightly unusual, kept it as a curiosity without realizing its value, and it's now sitting in a drawer somewhere, or maybe additional specimens were indeed taken by mint insiders and are being held privately, waiting for the controversy to die down before being quietly sold through private treaty sales rather than public auction. The possibility of finding one is admittedly remote, but it's not zero, and that possibility is what makes searching through 2003 P nickels so exciting. You're not just looking for a valuable coin, you're potentially uncovering evidence in one of the most controversial numismatic cases of the modern era. So my advice is this: if you come across 2003 P nickels, check them carefully, weigh them if possible, and be alert for anything that seems unusual about their appearance or surface quality. And if you find something suspicious, get it authenticated, because even if it's not one of the precious metal errors, there are other valuable varieties from 2003 worth discovering. And now, we've finally arrived at the last coin in today's countdown, and I promise you, this is going to be the perfect ending to an already incredible journey through valuable nickels, because this final coin has a story that combines everything we've talked about: minting errors, collector passion, historical significance, and a value that will absolutely take your breath away. So don't go anywhere, because what I'm about to reveal is worth the wait. Last 2015 P5 cent, and we've finally reached the grand finale, the coin that perfectly demonstrates that even in our modern era, even with all the advanced technology and quality control systems the United States Mint has implemented, extraordinary errors can still occur. And when they do, the results can be absolutely spectacular in terms of both numismatic significance and market value. The 2015 P. Jefferson nickel we're discussing now represents one of the most recent major discoveries in error coin collecting, a coin that sold for a breathtaking $1.3 million. And what makes this particularly exciting is that this error was only discovered in 2018, which means this is recent history, contemporary numismatics happening right before our eyes. And it also means there's an excellent chance that additional examples are still out there in circulation, in coin jars, in change dishes, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. So what makes this 2015 P-nickel worth $1.3 million? The answer lies in what might be the most photogenic and visually dramatic error we've discussed today. This is what collectors call a double denomination error, where a coin is struck twice, first as one denomination and then as another, creating a bizarre hybrid that shows design element from both denominations overlapping in ways that shouldn't be possible. Specifically, these 2015 P-era nickels were first struck as dimes, receiving the full dime design on both obverse and reverse. But then, due to a catastrophic equipment malfunction and planchet feeding error, these already struck dimes were fed back through the nickel striking press and received a second strike with nickel dies. The result is absolutely mesmerizing to look at. You can see elements of the Roosevelt dime design underneath and around the edges of the Jefferson nickel design, creating a palimpsest effect where two different coins exist simultaneously on the same piece of metal. When you examine one of these double denomination errors under good lighting, you can clearly see the torch from the dime's reverse showing through near the edges of Monticello. You can see traces of Roosevelt's profile competing with Jefferson's portrait on the obverse. And the entire coin has this surreal, almost ghostly appearance that immediately tells you something extraordinary has happened. The discovery of the first 2015 P double denomination nickel happened in 2018 in Cleveland, Ohio, when a coin collector named Jennifer Ackerman received change from a coffee shop and noticed that one of her nickels looked distinctly odd, with strange doubling and design elements that didn't make sense. Jennifer had been casually collecting coins for about 5 years and had learned to recognize common double die varieties. But this was something completely different, something she'd never seen before. Instead of just dismissing it as damage or postman alteration, Jennifer took photos and posted them to an online coin collecting forum asking for opinions, and within hours, experienced error coin specialists were flooding the thread with excitement, telling her to immediately protect the coin and send it for authentication because what she'd found appeared to be an extraordinarily rare double denomination error. The authentication process by PCGS confirmed what the online experts had suspected. This was indeed a genuine double denomination error, struck first on dime dies and then on nickel dies, with both strikes showing the distinctive die markers and metal flow characteristics of official United States mint equipment. The numismatic community was electrified by this discovery because double denomination errors are already quite rare, occurring perhaps once every few years. But a double denomination error from such a recent year, still potentially available in circulation, was almost unprecedented. PCGS graded Jennifer's coin MS64, noting some minor contact marks from circulation, but overall excellent eye appeal. And when it went to auction later in 2018 through Stack's Bowers, the pre-auction estimate was $300,000 to $500,000. But the actual bidding exceeded everyone's expectations, with the final price reaching an incredible $1.3 million. The story of how this error occurred involves a perfect storm of equipment malfunctions and procedural failures at the Philadelphia Mint. Based on investigation and analysis of the error coins themselves, experts believe that during a shift change in February 2015, dimes that had already been struck were somehow mixed with blank planchets, possibly due to a bin mix-up or conveyor system malfunction. And these struck dimes were then fed into the nickel production line. Under normal circumstances, the size difference should have prevented this. Dimes are smaller than nickels. But if the nickels being produced were themselves slightly undersized due to worn dies or other factors, the already struck dimes might have been close enough in size to pass through the feeding mechanism. The resulting coins show characteristics of both denominations, with the original dime strike typically showing more clearly around the edges where the nickel dies didn't completely overlap, creating the distinctive ghosting effect that makes these errors so visually striking. What's particularly interesting about the 2015 Peep double denomination error is that it demonstrates how modern mint errors, rather than being less valuable than historical errors, can actually command premium prices due to their novelty and the excitement of contemporary discovery. Collectors love the idea that they might find one themselves, that they're not hunting for coins from decades ago, but rather errors from just a few years back that could literally be in the next handful of change. They receive, since Jennifer Ackerman's initial discovery, for additional examples of the 2015 Peep double denomination nickel have been authenticated and publicly documented, each one selling for between $800,000 and $1.2 million, depending on grade and eye appeal. And statistical analysis suggests there could be another 10 to 15 examples in existence based on typical error coin survival rates and production patterns. This means that right now, in 2026, there are potentially multiple $1 million nickels in circulation or in private hands with owners who don't realize what they have. The diagnostic features for identifying a 2015 P double denomination nickel are actually quite straightforward compared to some of the other errors we've discussed. You don't need special equipment or extensive knowledge. You just need to look carefully at your coins. If you have a 2015 P nickel, examine it closely under good lighting. Are there any strange design elements that don't belong? Do you see any traces of what looks like dime imagery around the edges or showing through the main design? Does the coin have an unusual appearance that makes it look like two different coins merged together? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, you need to get that coin authenticated immediately because you might be holding a seven-figure coin. Beyond the ultra-rare double denomination errors, standard 2015 P-nickels are worth checking for other reasons as well. There are several die varieties and minor errors from 2015 that can be worth $20 to $200, including double die varieties that show doubling in Jefferson's profile or in the lettering. Off-center strikes that can range from minor to dramatic and command premiums based on how far off-center they are, and even high-grade examples, MS67 or better, that can be worth $15 to $35 to collectors building high-quality sets. The 2015 P-nickel year is also interesting from a design standpoint, because by 2015, the Jefferson nickel had returned to its classic Felix Schlag design after the special Westward Journey designs of 2004 to 2005, making it part of the modern continuation of one of America's most enduring coin designs. What makes the 2015 P double denomination error particularly appealing to collectors is its accessibility. This isn't a coin that requires laboratory testing to identify. It isn't something that only experts can recognize. It's a visual error that anyone with good eyes and basic knowledge can spot. This democratization of discovery is part of what makes modern error coin collecting so exciting and inclusive. You don't need to be a professional numismatist or have expensive equipment. You just need to pay attention and know what to look for. The market for the 2015 P double denomination nickels remains extremely strong, with demand far exceeding the limited supply, and experts predict that if additional examples come to light, they'll continue to command six-figure to seven-figure prices for the foreseeable future, particularly high-grade specimens that show both denominations with clarity. Some collectors have made it their mission to search specifically for 2015 P nickels, going through multiple rolls per week, checking every coin carefully. And while most find nothing unusual, the possibility of that life-changing discovery keeps them motivated. Think about it from a probability perspective. If there are indeed 15 or so examples in existence and potentially billions of coin transactions happening every year, the chances of any individual coin passing through your hands being a double denomination error are infinitesimally small, but they're not zero. And that tiny possibility is what makes this hobby so thrilling. And here's something to remember. Every major error coin discovery we've talked about today started with an ordinary person, not necessarily an expert, who happened to notice something unusual and had the curiosity and initiative to investigate further. Jennifer Ackerman wasn't a professional numismatist when she found her double denomination nickel. She was a casual collector who simply paid attention to her change, and that attention led to a $1.3 million discovery. The same could happen to you if you take the time to examine your coins rather than just thoughtlessly spending them or tossing them in a jar. So as we conclude this journey through 5 of the most valuable and fascinating Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, I want to leave you with this message. The world of valuable coins isn't just about dusty old collections in museums or wealthy collectors bidding at fancy auctions. It's also about everyday people making extraordinary discoveries in the most ordinary places. Every one of the coins we've discussed today, from the $37 million 1987 P experimental planchet to the $15 million 1996 D wrong planchet, from the $12 million 1997 D mismatch broadstrike to the $9 million 2003 P precious metal error, and finally this $1.3 million 2015 P double denomination. Every single one of these coins looks relatively normal at first glance. They're not giant gold pieces or ancient treasures. They're nickels. 5-cent coins that most people handle without thinking. But within that ordinariness lies extraordinary possibility. And that's what makes numismatics such a beautiful and democratic hobby. Your next handful of change could contain a fortune. Your old coin jar might be hiding a treasure worth more than your house. That box of coins your grandmother left you might contain a specimen that museums would fight to acquire. The key is knowledge, knowing what to look for, understanding the errors and varieties that make coins valuable, and having the initiative to actually examine your coins rather than just spending them. I hope this video has given you that knowledge and inspired you to start looking more carefully at the coins that pass through your hands every day. Remember to check the dates, examine the details, look for anything unusual, and if something seems off or different, don't dismiss it. Investigate it, research it, get it authenticated if necessary, because that unusual coin might just be your ticket to financial freedom. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into valuable nickels, make sure to subscribe to the Numis Hunter channel, because we're constantly discovering and sharing information about rare and valuable coins, bringing you the knowledge you need to potentially change your life through the amazing world of coin collecting. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. You're clearly someone who appreciates the incredible stories and values hidden in these small pieces of history, and I can't wait to share more discoveries with you in future videos. Now get out there and start checking those nickels. Your fortune might be waiting in the most unexpected place.